Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Now, over the last month or so, I have been watching with great interest the political proceedings on Capitol Hill in regards to the impeachment of the U.S. President Donald Trump. And over a few of my videos, I have shared my opinion. It's just my opinion. I'm not speaking for Maitreya or anything like that, but it's just my opinion on what I see is going on politically in this country and in regards to Donald Trump. Now, a couple people put some comments up there that lead me to believe they didn't like at all what I said. Now, I don't take it personally, you know what I mean? And as with most comments, you know, I really do appreciate when somebody takes the time to write out something on my channel. Now, of course, a little side note, I have to moderate my channel, so if there are inappropriate comments, I have to take those off immediately. I don't want to leave those up. And then there's other comments that people put up about the mark of the beast or him being the Antichrist or whatever. And I don't see Maitreya as that. I have proof for myself that he's not the Antichrist. And there's plenty of other videos where people talk about that. So I feel like, you know, if anybody's really interested in hearing that, they can go listen to them and not my channel. I don't care. You know, so that's why I take those down. So I'm just moderating my channel. But there are people that put up very thoughtful comments that I don't totally agree with or agree with at all, but I'll leave it up because they took the time to write it up there. And they might have something to say, even though it's different than what I believe. And this person happens to be one of them. Now, this person's name is Aunt Brad, A-N-T Brad. And this is kind of, I'm not going to talk about everything that this person said. I don't think it's necessary to go into all that. I don't know if you're somebody that reads comments on YouTube channels. I don't necessarily take the time to do all that, but you might, I don't know. So I wanted to kind of touch on some things that I think are really good talking points. Anyway, so he said, had Hillary been elected, it would have been another day in office. Now, maybe he was trying to say just another day in office. Now, as for this, I couldn't agree more. I think if Hillary Clinton had been elected, I think that in regards to what I talk about in terms of the need for world peace and the need to help save our planet, SOP, you know, in regards to the environment, I think we would probably be right around the same point that we're at right now. I don't know if there'd be a lot of progress in both those areas, and that there might be some of the regulations that, you know, the government had put in place in the environment. Maybe they would still be there, because I know there's been some deregulation in terms of environment and how corporations can do things and so forth over the past few years. Maybe those would still be in place, I guess. I don't know. But overall, I think that we would be no closer to solving the problem than we are right now. That's just my opinion. You know, I'm not a Hillary supporter. I never really have been. I did not vote for Hillary in the last election. I actually wrote Bernie Sanders' name in as a silent protest against Hillary Clinton. That was my way of protesting against her, because I didn't like what she did in the primaries with Bernie Sanders and his supporters and so forth. But I've never really been a Hillary fan. And it's kind of funny too, because the people in my life over the years, like such as my family members, when I bring up something that they view as against the Republican view, and they view it as anti-American when I say stuff like this, they always bring up Hillary Clinton, like that's going to hurt my feelings some kind of way. I you know, like I said before, if Hillary Clinton's corrupt and she did, you know, something illegal, she should be, you know, they should pursue it legally, like to do with anybody else, you know. And so the same thing with Biden. Had Biden done anything illegal in Ukraine, they should be, you know, pursuing that legally as well, you know. So I'm not saying that just because somebody's a Democrat, they're right and a Republican is wrong. By no means am I saying that, because I've actually voted Republican before. I know it might come as some surprise if my family members heard this, but you know, I thought I didn't vote for John McCain, but I thought John McCain was a decent fella. I thought he was a good guy, you know, and I know I got a lot of backlash from my quote unquote liberal friends, you know, when I said that to him, but I mean it, and I meant it, you know. I think he's got a good heart. Do I agree with him politically on things? No. But he was a decent fellow. And I'm sad. It's sad that he passed away because I think he would be adding a very sane voice to these whole proceedings. And he didn't like Donald Trump at all either. Because he saw what he was doing. And so I don't think I'm out of line to say what I said. Now the other thing is, where is it? This Aunt Brad wrote, "You state he acts like a dictator." So thank you for quoting me correctly, because I think the other person who made a comment said I said he was a dictator. But no, I did say he acts like a dictator and flies off the handle at the slightest little bit. Would you not defend yourself and be annoyed at your attackers by hitting back? Do you not realize the hatred against this man is diabolical itself? So, in a very, very simple word to answer that question, would I be annoyed at my attackers if I was president of the United States and hit them back? My answer would be no. And I can say that because my job has been in customer service or relating with customers or however it is for years now. And I've been attacked personally. I've been called all sorts of names. I've been called racial slurs and everything by just upholding the policies of the company that I represent. And I can't hit back at them. I may be annoyed by what they said, but I can't say anything back to them. I'd lose my job if I did that. So I have to sit back and take it. And if I was the president of the United States, I would have to walk the high road on this. And I don't think he does. And that's why I said what I said. Now, all the presidents up until Trump have done that, even the ones that I disagree with. It's just the thing about Donald Trump is he is a bully, and he bullies people around, and he brags, and he talks about how great he is and all that kind of stuff. And he's to me, he's like the worst kind of bully on the schoolyard. He's the one that brags, very brash, thinks he's better than everybody else, does no problem telling them that he's better than them, pushes them around, makes them feel some kind of way, hits them and all that kind of stuff. And when the little guy kind of pops him in the nose, he goes running to the teacher and cries and says, "Oh, Mrs. So-and-so, he just hit me," And he's like that. You can't admit that he's not, because he does. And and even the fact that he says that he gets more criticism than any other president in history other than Lincoln, it's just categorically not true. I've lived through enough, I've lived enough life and paid attention to politics to know they all receive criticism from the other side on a daily basis. It just happens to be him, Now, Donald Trump is unique in the fact that the people in the United States knew of who he was outside of politics for decades. So we all knew who he was as a person going into this. We all knew his business dealings, right? And so he's different in a lot of ways. There have been politicians who've been senators or representatives or the vice president. Of course, people knew who they were for years. But for somebody to not be a part of politics, maybe be political in a way, but not really a politician, and then get elected president after being well known for years is amazing. And it's unprecedented. And it might happen again in the future. Who knows? I don't know. But in a way, he is an outsider on Washington, D.C. And I know why people voted for him, because they thought he would help, as this guy said, drain the swamp and all that kind of stuff. But, he gets out there and he starts attacking people that criticize him. He threatens them. And you can't say that he didn't, because even when he was on the campaign trail, they have videos of him doing this in certain areas. He goes, "Hey, take him out back and beat the crap out of him. I'll pay for your legal defense." So he was inciting violence on somebody that disagreed with him. And he's done that ever since he's been on the political, in politics. Now, most politicians, when somebody disagrees with them, it bugs them, I'm sure. And they can get defensive, but they don't attack them the way that he's been doing it. And they don't threaten him. They don't threaten those people. He's outright threatening people that are standing up against him. Now, do I think that this whole proceeding is unfair? No, I think that Congress is doing their constitutional duty to check up on the president. Do I think that he's going to eventually be removed from office? I think there's a percentage. I don't know if it's necessarily a high percentage that he'll get removed, but there's a percentage he can get removed from office, sure. Now, I don't think it's a witch hunt like he says, because they think he broke the law. They're going through a trial, just like they would if they thought you or I broke the law. It's not a witch hunt. It's what Congress does. And if it was a witch hunt, not only the executive branch, but the judicial branch would say, no, 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 it's unconstitutional. You can't do that, right? Or whatever. They would stand up and do it. But they're letting it go too, because this is all a part of the way our country works. And the way I'm saying our country, because when reading this, it sounds like the Aunt Brad is not from this country, because they keep saying your country this and your country that. Now, so I do think he flies off the handle at the slightest little bit. Now, the other thing is, that I want to talk about, he says, it's ironic that you should relate the Maitreya. Now, Maitreya is not a title, it's his name, to Trump. And it's funny, now it is ironic because Donald actually used to refer to himself as the Donald. But Maitreya is not the Maitreya, because we are told in the last days that evil will be seen as good and good evil. And here you are condemning a man that has been brave enough to confront the evildoers of your nation. And the very fact he hits back at such hypocrisy is justice in itself. But you are so blind you do not see those who have controlled your country for so long. Now, that's his opinion of me. I get it right now. As it relates to Maitreya, I'm not relating Maitreya to Trump. What I was saying was, and trying to point out, was what is going on now and has been going on in this country politically and in other countries as well, not only politically but around the world, is the sort of cleavage, the Christ principle of Maitreya is flowing out in tremendous potencies all around the world and has for many, many years. And initially what happens when that Christ principle starts to come out, or starts to flow out into the world, is it brings all the corruption, all the greed, all the wrongdoing of, let's say this, in this case, politically, to the surface in order for people to see what's really going on so we can deal with it. Jesus prophesied in the Bible that he comes not to bring peace, but to bring a sword. That was not an actual sword. It was the sword of love, the love nature of God, the Christ principle of God that does that. Individually, so that's globally what happens, right? Individually what happens, and it's happening to every one of us without exception, is that Christ principle is affecting every one of us without exception. It's bringing all our stuff to the surface as well. So you might think, or I might think, or somebody else might think that they're doing really good deeds or whatever like this, or however, whatever comes out. But what's going to come up is the selfish aspect of why you're doing that. For instance, if you think you are living let's say you think you're a selfless person, but you're actually selfish. Well, what will come up is more of you acting selfishly. So you can deal with it and realize that you're not as selfless as you are, right? Now, I'm not saying you personally. I'm not attacking this person who wrote this. I'm just saying this is a hypothetical. You see what I'm saying? So, and this is me too. I'm dealing with the same thing too. So, or if you are greedy, you become even more greedy. Now on the other side, if you maybe are altruistic, you become even more altruistic. So whoever we are as individuals, this Christ principle is stimulating us to become more of who we are so we can see it. And I touched on it a little bit with a quote from Corinthians. It says, even Satan can disguise himself as an angel of light. To me, that's not talking about any Antichrist figure. It's talking about our own selfish motives and how we disguise them as good deeds. Now, in that case, right, selfish motive disguised as a good deed, this Christ principle will expose that. And it's painful, it's uncomfortable. Believe me, it's happened to me. I've seen it. It's like, that's not right. But it's all there for us to see it. But there's a purpose behind this. And the purpose is that it's stimulating the love nature and the Christ principle within all of us. Everyone in humanity is divine. Donald Trump is divine, so I'm not condemning Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton's divine. All the people who call Maitreya Antichrist are divine. All the people working toward climate change and helping, solve that problem are divine. All the people in Christian churches are divine. All the people who don't believe in the Christian churches are divine. Everyone on the planet, without exception, is divine. But that energy, that Christ energy, is stimulating all of us. And it can be quite uncomfortable initially, but eventually it's going to start to waken the hearts of humanity up. And in the regards to politics, we're going to start to see as a people who and what our leaders are and their intentions are. They can't hide as much as they used to be able to 100 or 200 years ago. We're going to see it. So the revelation for humanity because of this is the fact that we can't go on the way that we've been going on. Same thing with this Christ principle, the sword of cleavage coming out. To see that we can't abuse our environment the way that we've been doing. That's the reason why this stuff keeps coming up to the surface and keeps going. We have to keep dealing with it over and over again to the point where we realize we can't abuse our environment the way that we've been doing for so many years. And that we'll have to tackle it and deal with it. So it has to be big, bold print for humanity to get it. And that's what this Christ principle is doing. And that's what I was saying about Donald Trump was when he got elected, let me go back. When he got elected, I actually had an open mind about him. And I got a lot of flack from my family and friends because I actually said, just watch him. Because he was a wild card and he was an outsider. And I was hoping that he would flip the script on the traditional Republican narrative and take more of a independent view on the presidency. That's what I was hoping for. Now, what I think it is, and the other thing I was saying, it was either that or he is going to be the lightning rod for change because he really he's America personified. And a lot of presidents have. I think Ronald Reagan was very much like this, but he is America personified at this moment in time. He personifies all the personality traits that Americans have. Very brash, loud, aggressive at times, self-deception. These are all qualities that the United States has as a general rule, especially when dealing with other countries. And it's all coming to the surface so we can deal with it. We're not we're not living up to the ideals that our founding fathers had about the United States. We never have, liberty and justice for all, for what? For just whites and not blacks? You see what I'm saying? So for centuries, people thought that we lived in a country where it was liberty and justice for all. But yet in plain sight, there are large millions of people that didn't have that liberty, that same freedom, So it's all having to come to the surface so we deal with it because this country has a lot to offer the world and has a long future ahead of it. So he also wrote about how if something happens to Donald Trump and he gets removed from office, that it will be the end. I don't know how he put it, but basically he's saying it would be the end of the United States as we know it or whatever. It would be shattered or something like this. I don't agree with it at all. This country has got a wonderful future ahead of us. But we have to, and not only for this country, but for the world as a whole, the only way to get to that future is together. We will either together discover that peace is a necessity, or we will go down together and we will all die together. And so I do agree with what you said about so I don't believe it's the last days or the end times, but I do believe I do agree 100% what you said. Where is it? Evil will be seen as good and good evil. And aren't we in that right now? People in this country view war as a good thing and have for a long time. It's an evil. What we did in Iraq was evil. We attacked a country that had nothing to do with 9/11, killed over 1 million people in that country that had nothing to do with terrorism, and yet this country wakes up every day like they did the good thing. And yet when somebody like Maitreya or Benjamin Creme stand up, or Bernie Sanders or anybody else stand up and talk about the need for peace or the need for justice or the need for sharing, or in Bernie Sanders' case, the need for health care or education for everybody, people label him as evil because he's saying that. But yet when somebody talks about more war and more military and we need to attack this country, people are, yes, they clap their hands. That's good, that's good. So we're seeing it right now. We're seeing the fact that people have blurred the lines between good and evil. And that's why this Christ principle, it's doing its job, because people are starting to see it and wake up to the fact that, whoa, evil is evil and good is good, right? And justice for everyone is good. Everyone having enough food is a good thing. It's not an evil. So I hope this helps, but I really want to again thank this person for commenting about this. And of course, I'll leave it up for you guys to read if you want to read it. But thanks again, and I hope this helps. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.